Welcome back to another episode of Talking Shit ATL with your host Amanda.
And I'm Prodigy Q.
And then, as you can see if you're on YouTube, Teddy stole my spot, but he's still with us hanging, so.
Yeah,
no boy.
Yeah,
he looks so cute right now. Yeah, he's so a good boy. Today we will be continuing our Black History Month episodes. This one's our final of the month, but not final of the year, because Black History is all year long.
Absolutely, 365.
Yeah. So today we will be talking about Hurricane Katrina and Oscarville. So we will either be spilling the tea to you or just like pulling out a fresh cup to remind you of.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you know, but there's a lot to unpack here.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I got a long list, so I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, actually, I will start.
Okay.
And so, because mine's a little bit shorter, and we can talk about it, because I know you said she got a lot of notes, and I'm really excited to actually talk about this, because it actually hits a little bit closer to home for those who don't know, but she'll tell you about it a little bit more, and why that all matters. But anyway, I'm going to actually start talking about I'm actually going to be talking about Black Wall Street, and it actually kind of goes in line with a lot of things that we're talking about today as well. And sorry, I'm not sure what all you're talking about, but I know everything I'm talking about is fairly heavy, and we just want to warn you to be prepared for that. But you know us, we crack jokes here and there, so we'll have a good time learning, no matter what. Absolutely. So as you can see, and for those audio listeners, you can't see, but we're definitely here. We got our blankets, we're comfortable, so we definitely advise everyone to do the same. We're kind of like your late night podcast, so definitely curl up, grab something, listen to this heavy stuff, and this is heavy as well. But going back into Black Wall Street, was actually, and so it actually happened May 31st and June 1st, 1921, and it happened in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma. These are also known as the Tulsa Race Massacre or the Tulsa Massacre. It's kind of known, various different things, but this particular area was known as Black Wall Street, and it was a thriving African American community with a bustling business district. It was filled with very successful Black-owned businesses, including banks, hotels, restaurants, shops, the whole 9 yards. And again, this being a few decades removed from slavery and that kind of thing. So again, it kind of speaks volumes again with this particular community and its importance, because again, this was at a time where again, blacks had just literally kind of gotten off of again, got free from slavery a few decades, and then this was an opportunity for blacks to really kind of have the first momentum and position in our country to kind of start doing for themselves. Right? That definitely was, again, the goal, and that type of thing. But basically, so what happened was a young black man named Dick Rowland was actually accused of assaulting a white woman named Sarah Page in the elevator. And although details of the incident remain unclear, tensions escalated rapidly due to the underlying racial tension and fears of interracial relations. So following Rowland's arrest, a white mob gathered outside the courthouse where he was held, demanding that he be lynched. So the situation spiraled out of control, leading to a large-scale attack on the Greenwood district by white mobs. The mobs looted and burned homes, businesses, churches, resulting in the complete destruction of the prosperous black community.
And reports also indicate that hundreds of people were killed and thousands were left homeless. In addition to violence perpetrated by the mob, there were allegations of official involvement, including reports of deputized white citizens engaging in destruction and even the use of aircrafts to drop incendiary devices on the buildings. And of course, the tragedy was often downplayed or ignored in historical accounts for many years. Again, like I said, this maybe actually be news to a lot of people. But again, the Tulsa Race Massacre, as it's also known, definitely remains one of the most egregious examples of racial violence in American history. Again, I mean, this was a community, again, that was just trying to, I guess, pull themselves out from the bootstraps, as you kind of hear a lot, especially again when it kind of comes to our community as well. But in recent years there was definitely some renewed attention back, brought back to it. People call it for reparations or greater significance, when it comes to, again, the history books. And then in 2021, on the 100th anniversary of the massacre, President Joe Biden did visit Tulsa and call for the nation to, kind of confront its painful legacy of racial violence and inequality. And again, this is, again, one of those things where, again, you kind of don't really hear about, but oftentimes, again, when it kind of comes to what are we doing as far as progression in this community on that level, or in this country, typically, like I said before, you kind of get that type of idea like, blacks need to, pull themselves up from the bootstraps and, make greater marks and the claims and that kind of thing when it comes to an economical standpoint. And again, when you have situations like this where you have people who are trying to do that, and then again, it gets bombed, ruined, again, all based
and
off
it was
of
1905, right? I feel like
that's what I said. Sorry. No, I think it was. I'm sorry. Yes. So May 31st, 1921.
21.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So definitely within a couple generations of now.
You're right, for sure. For sure. It's so crazy that a lot of the things we're talking about, it's so crazy how a lot of these things happen around the same time period, around the 20s and 30s. Again, but again, like I said, all leading up to the Civil Rights Movement.
Right.
And so when people think about the Civil Rights Movement, again, in the 50s, and, why it was such a pivotal moment, it was really because of all these things that happened the decades prior. And of course, after the ending of slavery, that we had a lot of these things where, again, we're trying to now make a life for ourselves from slavery into positions of the society, into the country. And then these were the things that we were, met as we're trying to just make progression, or like I said, as we're trying to, pull ourselves from our bootstraps, and then our straps and our boots both get bombed, and it's still like, hey, but this is definitely one of those things, because again, who knows? I mean, we're talking about, again, a greater movement towards economics for our community, and again, those things, like, who knows where they could have been 100 years from now, because clearly, definitely way ahead of their time, and what they were trying to build and what they had. So again, I just imagine how much more we have right now, because the biggest thing that definitely plagues us, if you listen to a lot of political, and I mean like more like black political leaders, as far as what we can do as a community, and the biggest thing in that is the fact that we don't, as a community, have our own infrastructures, or at least a lot of those in place. Now we're starting to kind of get here and there a little bit of things, but when it comes to full infrastructure, we still are so greatly behind in that when it comes to even our contributions to this country. We don't have our own, where we mainly own a lot of our, like, sports teams, or major banks or major business. I think the major only African American bank we have is what Fifth Third Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Three Fifths Bank.
I'm not sure.
What goes first.
I'm not sure.
3 to 5 that comes first.
I think
is it Fifth Third Bank?
I feel like it's 3/5, but now I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
y'all know
I would think
fat chairs.
I know.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So I think it
Oh no, Fifth Third.
Oh, so it's Fifth Third. Okay, yeah. So Fifth Third Bank, I think, is the only, African American owned bank we have. But just things that, like I said, just things those kind of things, we really don't have. And again, they were in this particular town, in this particular city, at least beginning. Like I said, I think that again, had it not have been bombed and truly flourished the way they were designing it to do so, I do think that more, of course, communities would have followed suit. And again, we probably would have more of those things now. We probably would have some of our own production companies, like we mentioned before. We probably would have our own, and people talk about, I need to get your own, and those kind of things, and maybe trying to sit at their table, build your own table, and those kind of things. But again, I think sometimes when you see that, as we begin to try to build our own table, how hard that really becomes, because even then we're scapegoat at even trying to build for ourselves. And unfortunately, that is a major thing when it comes to, why we're still so far behind us when it comes to the economics of things. That's still an area, again, where we still don't have the proper equality when it comes to, of course, money, and those resources. And again, I will understand why, of course, it's always been a construct of, you not wanting us to get too far ahead, or, in many cases, because I guess of potential uprising and things of that nature, which I don't think is ever the case. I don't think, it's been a black thing of like, oh, let's, get ahead so we can be ahead and we can, somehow overthrow the powers that be. I think it's always been, we just want inclusion and we just want to be a part of it. I don't think it, and I know sometimes the powers that be has always been maybe that thing of fear of some type of uprising, but I think, just from history and conversations, it's never been about, oh, let's try to get ahead so we can, quote unquote, do the white man like he did us. It's never been. It's just like, let us get a seat at the table so we can continue to help build this country. And I think that those things is true if we get to a place where it's so we can all be equal in that regard, because we will see that ultimately, if we're not fighting each other, the greater things we can do with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's like the biggest telling of all. Like,
studies have proven that the more like diversity in multiple different ways, not just talking about race, like if you bring a group that's very diverse in their background together, they will create a better outcome faster than a lot of people that are alike working together.
Right. And it's so true. We talk about these ideas of like making America great and all these things. And I don't think that those things truly, I don't think we can truly be as great as we truly can be until we're all equal within this country. Because I think it's so crazy that, we have such a divisiveness among ourselves when at the end of the day, I mean, as us being patriots of this country, like, we should never be each other's enemy.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really disheartening. Sometimes even when we do have to say it, and I'm sometimes in that place too, and where it's like ideas of like black or African American, or you have some people who will say I'm not black, or I'm not African American, or I've never been from Africa, so I don't have ties to Africa. I'm American, and I think that so many of those things is true when it comes to our country, because we have those divisions all the time where you have to check white, black, all the other ones different, what I'm saying, all these things, when it's like at the end of the day, truly we are American, and it's so crazy that our country is kind of the only one that really does that, because you think about other countries when you think about like Australians and stuff like that, you don't think about like white Australians versus possibly black Australians. You just think Australian. Or, most countries they are people of that country, not broken into these different things within that country. Like I think, and I don't know if other countries have. I never researched, but I know it's not like common knowledge. Like I don't, like how we have again all these different divides where versus we should just really be Americans. You think about Europe, you don't think about black European. You think about Europeans.
Yeah.
They're European.
Well, and there's so many countries in a small amount of land. So, like, it's really, I feel like the patriotism is, like, even stronger there because it's, like, your country, your people better, maybe, in the sense of, like, I haven't gone to a lot of parts in the U.S. because it's so far away. Like, our culture in America is to be far away and not be, like, forced to communicate. I know when I went to Europe, I felt in a very positive way that I was, like, forced to communicate with people because we were, right next to each other, sometimes touching skin in public places with a stranger, and here, like, we have our cars a lot of times. A lot of people do because it's really, really hard to get around without one. And it's like, and then if you go into any public kind of place, you try to sit away from people. It's like automatically a separation between the community.
Yeah, for sure. And even within the mindset of it all, like even the idea, like even in our community, like even in some of our music, it's all about like, oh, we don't mess with them. We don't rock with them. We're not supposed to chill. You know what I mean? Like, it's so sect and divided. Like I said, so many things are so sect and divisive on many levels that, it's just really crazy like how we kind of promote that. Or, like I said, my clique don't hang with this clique. Or, you can't sit with us. Or, you know what I mean? And we
can't sit with us.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying? We do that kind of divisiveness among on different sects, like I said, not just racial, but like I said, even if it's
cultural,
or even money classes, different things, like certain those kind of groups. So
gender, everything, religion,
everything in this country versus again
versus celebrating our differences.
And like I said,
that's what makes like society as a whole beautiful is everybody bringing who they are and their differences together for a common good.
And I think so agree with that too, because it's like if the whole idea early on was to create and for us to be this melting pot of different cultures and then we divide ourselves among those cultures is kind of weird.
And I heard somebody talking about melting pot the other day. I actually heard it on Ladies and Tangents podcast. Yeah. I love them. I'm gonna tell them about this too. But I heard them talking about how like it's people use America and melting pot as like a term which like sounds great, but then a lot of times, like, what do you do in a melting pot? Like, you melt down, like you lose part of yourself to become one. You don't celebrate like I'm gonna dip in the bread and then I'm gonna dip in some meat, but those are separate things. Like, it's like you put it together and it melts, and it all the things that make it unique melt away. And I feel like that's like a lot of pressure in the United States of like to lose your culture, to assimilate, to be an American.
But I also feel like part of that is true in regards to the fact of, personally, I feel like America doesn't have its own identity. Yes. Because of that as well. So as you get this different cultures and things coming in, then I feel like as a response, as America has assimilated these different cultures and took on these different cultures as well versus creating its own. Because like even a lot of our holidays, a lot of our holidays are other culture holidays that we celebrate. Yeah. Even a lot of things that we do have, even some of our sports. I mean, we got a few things that's American bred, but I mean, very few far between.
Yeah, well, and finally Juneteenth got recognized as a national holiday. That's that, and the 4th of July are like the only holidays that we have that I can think of that are like actually dealing with our history itself.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, of course, you got like Columbus Day and.
I forget about that because I'm like, fuck Columbus.
But
it's Indigenous People Day too, so that's really good too.
And but you know, I do feel like that too, because you know, you think about like, again, like what is American culture? It's like, you know, like we're kind of.
Yeah, let's create a new culture because the culture ain't hitting. Okay,
we kind of culture vultures as a country a little bit, but I think again, like going back,
I think there's a balance though that we can that's definitely possible of like creating our own culture together while also still holding whatever culture like is true to you, whoever you come from, whatever you celebrate, like you can still keep that too.
Because my whole thing comes that when you start doing that and you're just constantly kind of, you know, not want to say taking in that regard, but when you're kind of, you know, grabbing pieces of different cultures, again, I do think that eventually as a country, we're going to start getting so far from what we're supposed to believe. And I get the inclusion of things, but I do think that we have to really start.
That we need both. That everybody can identify with one, and everybody can still be their individual person. We can celebrate that.
If the national anthem is going to be a thing, then it needs to be a thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I get the people who feel the need to protest and the people who did, you know, who kneeled and all these things and understanding. But it's like, again, if these are supposed to be pivotal things of pride for our country, we need to respect it as such. Even, you know what I'm saying? Even, you know, just respect it as such. Like, even I understand we get the First Amendment and we can voice our opinions and all those things are great. We can talk down on government if we want to, you know, because we can. But again, compared to like other countries, try to do that. Try to say, listen, and I ain't gonna lie, we say some things in this podcast, but listen, let us be from another country. Oh, listen, we would have, for real, we probably would have been missing. For real.
Yeah, for real. That's actually very true. Yeah. But I also love a government protest, so I love the kneeling, so I was like here for it.
Right, that's just the natural rebel in us in that regard. But, and I was here for it too, because I understood.
Yeah.
But
I do think that because it was during the national anthem part that people that needed to hear the message were never going to hear the message because they were going to focus on not celebrating patriotism.
Yeah. Right.
So I do feel like there's like definitely a balance that...
And it's a balance because at the end of the day, you have to give people a reason to be a patriot. And I think that's the biggest thing why you have people kneeling, all these kind of things, because again, as what we're talking about and all of this stuff, because I always come back to it, is like, if I'm not, because again, it could all be so simple if we had true equality in this country, and again, the focus was literally for everybody, then you would be a proud patriot. You would have a reason. But when you feel like, okay, every chance, like, so we're talking about this, we're talking about other things where we constantly been beaten and belittled, and then still to say you're supposed to have patriotism.
Right.
How can I have patriotism for a country that doesn't respect me as a patriot? You know, it always got to go both ways. You know, respect goes both ways. I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes, you know, in these things as well. But yeah, so
yes, I hear you. I agree. Yes. We are halfway through our episode, so we got to move on.
Yes,
but we'll come back. We'll probably do episodes just on that topic too, because you know we like to mention all the problems that we got in this society and give some hope for the future as
Absolutely,
well.
Right.
So first I'm gonna run through facts and then then we can talk. So Hurricane Katrina, there were like days and days before the hurricane hit where they could have released like an emergency evacuation warning. They did not do it until 24 hours before it hit. They were confiscating guns while it was like after the hurricane. They were like forcing people to give up their guns. They finally got mobile homes for people, but then they were killed with formaldehyde. That was in the mobile homes. It hit as a category 5. And also when it hit originally, on Miami on, August 25th, it had already taken 11 lives, and that's when it was like, I think it had just hit to be a hurricane, and then it increased over the matter of a few days, and they still did nothing. Also people that were in the Superdome. So if you don't know, definitely look it up, because I don't have time to go through all the facts that I have. I'm just trying to highlight some things, but because of that 24 hours, they kind of forced people to go to the Superdome, because a lot of like areas that were hit really hard were also like poor areas, and also even if you had money, 24 hours is no time to get out of there and like realize what's coming. And then they also like there's like a system in the government where if you're hit with, if you need FEMA, you have to go through so many hoops to get there, unless they like put it out as a like national or whatever emergency. Like it has to go, the government, the federal government has to basically be like, it's an emergency, we're coming and we're gonna do everything, or else it has to go from the mayor to like somebody else to the governor, and then like somebody else, and then to the federal, right. Like it has to take so many steps to get there. So that's the steps that it was taking.
Yeah.
And because of that, there was no food or water for 2 days in the Superdome. If you had any food or water, you got it yourself, or that's why there was a lot of looting, because people were dying and starving and getting no aid sent to them. So, bitch, I'd be looting too. Right. Are you kidding me? Right. And then there was tens of thousands of people there without the food or water. People waited for buses. So they sent Greyhound buses. They finally got Greyhound buses. People waited for them. They sent the buses back. And then eventually, with nobody on them.
What?
Then they waited a couple days. Some people got some on September 2nd. And it hit on the August 29th at 6 a.m. And so, yeah, I'm laughing, but it's like, I'm just laughing because I'm like, that's how I deal with things. Not because it's funny, because it's really fucking fucked up. Yeah. They like also this just shows the systemic issues, because there was a hospital in town. There's Charity Hospital. I didn't know about this hospital until I started researching it, and then I like could not stop researching it because it's disgusting what FEMA did with this hospital. Charity Hospital had been open for a very long time, and they had been offering free care for decades and decades before Hurricane Katrina. Then, like, I can't remember how many years before Katrina, but close enough to Katrina, they stopped giving care because FEMA was saying that it was going to be too expensive to fix the repairs. What? So they needed to open a new hospital that was going to be a, like, pay for healthcare hospital, and that they were doing that for the betterment of the people, and it was going to help everyone. And they also, when they did open this thing, they didn't call it Charity Hospital, because they were like, some people are going to get offended by saying charity because people want to pay for their things and all this stuff. And they were like, the people giving this interview, I was like, y'all are so far removed from real life. It's disgusting.
Disgusting. Like I said, I mean, clearly if it was open and operational for years with that name, clearly nobody felt no type of way.
It was, and there were so many people that worked at Charity. They were like, we went through walkthroughs. It looked completely normal. And then as they were getting more shit for not, like, being open and there being a hospital, but still during Hurricane Katrina, there was a tent that people were in being taken care of to a small degree. And if they weren't taken care of there, they were sent somewhere else and I guess taken care of, but probably didn't make it that far. And but FEMA said it was going to be a $492 not $492. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
they were
right.
like, that's too much.
Right.
$492 million replacement value, and damages were $26 million. But then when they like actually checked that, it was lower than what they were saying on all accounts. And the people that were actually working at the hospital that wanted to make a difference, they said they walked around, it looked perfectly fine. And then they said as they got like equipment out of there to bring to the tent, like every time they went back, it looked like a new hurricane had gone through there, because there was like security officers and different people that verified that sinks were not on in the hospital. And then the next day or next few days after that, they come back. I think it was the next day they came back, like when no one was supposed to be in the building, no one had gotten access to the building, and sinks were left on so that it flooded multiple floors. It flooded the elevator. It just got more decrepit every single fucking day. And the only people who could have done that, allegedly for the safety of myself, is the government. Like, they're the only ones, because all the people that were working and helping hadn't been in there.
I was gonna say again, like I said before, conspiracy theorists here.
Uh-huh.
When you start really looking at some of those things, you start questioning. Like I said, I've had people who from the area who said that the storm really wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
honestly,
it was.
Like I've heard like a lot of people said like it was just a regular storm, and then
It was because they put no money into building the dam and didn't build it correctly.
Yeah, and I also heard that.
They released.
I heard that.
Yeah.
The dam was purposely released, which is actually what flooded the area, because if it would have flooded a small area on the rich side would have been damaged. So they wanted to preserve the rich side, and so they flooded the poor side.
Yeah.
And so the hurricane itself didn't destroy the area, but the purposeful releasing of a dam did. And that's what I heard. And again, because of that too, you would think, I mean, you know how it go, man. You got to make the story sound good. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and the army, whatever division of the army that made it, was held liable for that. I'm not sure if they were held as liable as they should have been, but they were at least held liable to some degree, because they made it. Like, whatever section of the army made those.
Made that decision?
Made the infrastructure that was not strong enough and was not built correctly.
Oh, yeah, right. And so, like I say, it's crazy because those things are true. Because, again, I mean, these things are alleged, and, I mean, and I don't know how, or if any of that information is actually truly public. Other things you gotta really dig for, really, to find this information. But
because they're gonna try to hide it.
Yeah, but I mean, I do felt like that was all, like I said, kind of purposeful, as far as like, you know, you damage the land, you can rebuild the land, and then charge double, triple what you was charging before.
Yeah, regardless of that part and what all happened there's other things that are like, it's point blank period what they were doing, you know, because they also had people in the area, like around where Charity Hospital was, come back and rebuild. They asked them to come back and rebuild, and then made them leave their homes because they wanted to use the space for the state of the art. And it's like LSU was at kind of the top of a lot of this stuff too. But they wanted to build more onto the hospital that they were making people pay for in replacement of Charity Hospital. So they basically made people like leave their homes too. But they made them come back and rebuild, and then took their homes. And then also 6 months after Katrina, they renovated a department store so that they could have more than the tent up there. So you'd like, someone was like, they were like, you go up the escalators, you think you're going to the lingerie, and then you're there at the makeshift hospital. Like, what? And then also, they were talking about putting people, they couldn't test for tuberculosis, so they were putting people on, like, buses, possibly with TB, and, like, sending them really far. There was one doctor on the list who was, like, or on the documentary that I watched that was, like, one of the list of speakers, at an event for Charity Hospital, and then, I'm not sure who it was at the LSU, like, medical area, but it was probably the same guy that I watched in that interview that was annoying. But he was told that he could not speak at the charity event or else he would lose his job with LSU, and they would make sure that he, like, never worked in the state again. And he resigned.
Wow.
And still talked to the event.
Nice. I love it.
It was amazing.
I love that.
Like, I love when people, like, are faced with that, like, enemy in power trying to take you down and you still fight against it. Right. It's amazing.
Absolutely. I love that.
And then also they proved that they had the budget to finish making the repairs to Charity Hospital within 3 years, and they were like, nope, you're wrong. That's all they said.
But these numbers show that you can actually have it done.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're getting your information from, but
there was random trash that would be all over the hospital when people came back, when it's like nobody had been there, supposedly. Yeah, and and also I forgot to mention, I had it in this note, with the water running in the bathroom, there was towels stopping up the sink, so trying to block it going down so it could only flood it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was open, not even decades, I wrote this down. It was open for 300 years.
The hospital?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Because or I guess 200 and something years. It was like the early 1700s or something. And they tore down houses. Yeah, and then also, one thing that happened, and I have a couple more things to talk about Katrina, but these are the big ideas, so definitely look it up yourself. But so, like, there are many different parts of Hurricane Katrina and other events where it was definitely some racist shit. Because they purposely, like, did not, like, they saved the rich areas, and they purposely maybe did destroy the poor areas themselves, and they didn't really receive any decrease in white residents in the area, but there was a 29% drop in black residents.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's, like, that number speaks for itself.
Definitely speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it also was, there was another event.
And it was displaced and separated from families, and, I mean, all of it. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause, I mean, and it's you know, and I've always felt like to have my reservation, especially with, you know, the one thing we don't get back is land, right? And so at a time in a period of redlining where it's like, okay, we'll give, you know, blacks this, and, you know, and that whole thing, which is how we, you know, got these two different sects of a town or a city. But then I think it's like, now that, again, we're not getting land back, it's like, okay, now we need a reason to basically go get that. And I feel like I've seen that across the board. I mean, gentrification is a real thing. I mean, it's definitely heavily, and it's big here, you know, in Georgia and Atlanta. You see it a lot. And even from that, it's like, that's what I see. It's like, oh, we now, you know, land that we was going to give y'all, and hoods and ghettos and stuff like that. Now these same people are coming in and taking this land, rebuilding these properties, spiking up the rent, the property value, so that now the same people you zone for this area can't even afford the new house. So again, and now they're forced to go other places, and I mean, it's really, you know, gross and sickening, honestly.
Yeah. And all the government officials eventually, by 2010, they were all like not in office. The mayor resigned in 2010, but then was also like later like charged for a bunch of different stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Like money laundering and everything.
Oh.
And
the money, y'all.
Right. And then the governor didn't run for office again after her term. And then like Bush kind of got a little bit of it, but not like, I don't know. I feel like the FEMA directors were the top of everything that happened, because of how many different things I found that supported that. But Bush also didn't do shit because he was too focused on the war.
Yeah.
But also reminder, I hate all government, so I'm just saying. But
it was definitely the relief effort where
because so much. That's the thing, that FEMA didn't have as much like money also because all of the money got taken to the war. Like they literally redistributed funds to support the war.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, all of it is wild. And again, I think it's just necessary for us as, again, a people to really become aware of these kind of political things that ultimately affect us. Because, again, if you're making decisions that could cost people lives, cost people their homes, and that type of thing, with no plan. I mean, like I said, even if you decided, okay, this is what we have to do, we have to release this thing, because if not, it's gonna XYZ, but then not give.
You had plenty of opportunity to tell people, and plenty of opportunity after to do something to help. But then you gave them homes with formaldehyde in them when you finally gave homes.
Yeah,
which, so you
like I said, it's like. And it's just so disheartening about it all, because again, it's like you can definitely in these aspects really see the value or disvalue of these communities. And again, I mean, still to this day, like just blacks as a whole, if we just being real, you know what I mean? Like we still come so far. People want to say we come so far from, segregation and slavery and all these things, and yet we're still dealing with these kind of literally pure injustices, and then we're just gonna throw a kind of a painting over it, so to throw something over to make it look good. Yeah. When really we doing all these horrible things, and we get the people. And I mean, and that's the whole thing about like a lot of the stuff is like if we get the people to go for it and to believe it and try to do it in a way that makes them think we're really doing something about it, then that'll keep people from asking questions. Yeah,
because there were trucks of water that FEMA turned away. They got delivered. They turned it away. They removed ID bracelets from people in the hospital so that people in the hospital couldn't locate their patients anymore because they had FEMA tags on them instead of their hospital bracelets. Like, they left those Greyhounds empty. They, like, the Bush cut the budget. Like, it's like all these things that, like, set up everything to be the perfect storm of fucking murder.
Murder and greed.
Yeah.
At the expense of people that we feel like, okay, they have no value.
It wasn't the natural disaster that did all that.
They're just poor blacks. We don't need them. They're not doing anything for society and community. We can just flood them out. The ones that make it cool, the ones that don't, great. The ones that get separated, oh well. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
speaking of murder, sorry, we only have a little bit of time left, so I do want to move to Oscarville. So let me know. Do you have anything?
Oh no,
on Katrina? Okay. Yeah. So Oscarville is very, very, very important. If you don't know, Oscarville was a town that used to be where parts of Lake Lanier were. And so there's a lot of people that have died swimming in Lake Lanier, and people think it's haunted, which definitely I think it's haunted. And it's not only because of Oscarville. I'm just going to mention this really quick, and then I'm going to go into everything about Oscarville. There's also an indigenous people burial ground from a tribe that was discovered when the water got low enough, and they said that they relocated the bodies and made it all good, but I doubt it. And that stuff's sacred. There's a lot of traditions that go into burying people.
Yeah, right.
Like, that I didn't know at all. So that was very shocking. Also, what happened in Oscarville is that there was there was a white woman found dead in the woods near Oscarville. And this was a time where people just found a black person and blamed them. They had no evidence. They didn't know. This still happens today. It's just more low key.
Same thing literally with the same story.
Yeah.
About the same thing. No evidence.
Yeah, and they just... So they just picked some people, blamed them, and then what's called night riders, which they would just go around at night and burn people's towns to shreds. So they came and like lynched people, killed people, burned their houses down, burned the church down. So there was no safe place to go. All that happened. The community was also created in the late 1800s during Reconstruction era. It was a very thriving community. A lot of people had farms and were very successful. And they, like, as a community, they really celebrated, like, the church and their religion. And so you do need to know that it was burnt down in 1912, which was still part of the Jim Crow era. So just slavery with a different name. Then people were woken up by the fires and fire bombs that they threw. But then after that happened, in the late 1950s is when it was flooded.
Wow.
So they essentially burned it down and was like, because I watched different videos with people's families that their families had survived. They burned it down, and then there was some kind of water there, and they were like, swim or die, essentially. So people had to swim for their lives with any belongings they had, if they had them. Probably not, because most of it was burned to shreds, and fires take everything. So... yeah, so a lot of people died just by swimming away, not even from the, like, murder in the town. Right. And then a lot of people settled in Gainesville, and then it eventually got set up as the poultry capital because a lot of people in Oscarville owned farms and already knew how to farm. So there's a lot of that history for there. And yeah, there's also, sorry History Channel, but y'all did not do it right with I watched so many things, and History Channel was just like, they mentioned it at one point, and they were like, people had to relocate from their homes. Like, they just kind of mentioned it casually, like they were just like, oh, let me buy your house for you and you can relocate. Like, It was like, that's not what happened at all. So I hated that they kind of skipped over that, but yeah.
That's the thing with a lot of these things and a lot of these stories too, is because they will definitely downplay it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, even that, like the news even try to downplay it, from what it was, and like I said, try to use, more colorful language. Like, the residents just, had to leave, up and left. And it's like, no, they were ran off.
Yeah, or killed.
Or killed.
Or beaten, like, what, all of it. Horrifying stuff.
It's
horrible. Over just someone pointing in a crowd and picking a person and then them going after them. Like, who knows what happened to that woman? And even if someone did rape her, it's not cause to burn a whole town down and start killing people.
Right, especially with no suspect of any regard.
Of anything. They just found her. Yeah. They knew nothing. They didn't have anything tested. Just no evidence.
Off out of there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a farm town. Like, I guarantee you someone else did it in another part of town and drove her and dropped her.
Right. Oh, let's put it, especially because they probably think the same thing. Oh, let's put it where the blacks live. No,
yeah. I bet that's what happened. I bet that's what happened a lot. But yeah, so I personally think, and I I don't know anybody personally. I don't think that's going to get upset about this, but I know some people would be upset by this plan because of how much money Lake Lanier brings in. But I personally think that we need to drain the whole thing because there's still parts of Oscarville and other surrounding towns that are under Lake Lanier that are there. There's still infrastructure. That's part of the reason that people drowned is they get stuck in different infrastructure that's still there. Yeah. So I think we need to drain it, fix it up, and then anybody who is a relative of someone that lived in those towns needs to own that land.
I agree. Yep.
That's what should 100% be done.
Because it is something, again, I mean...
and the indigenous burial ground should be replaced again.
I believe wholeheartedly, in respect to the ancestors more than a lot of things. So it's like, you talk about, like I said, a lot of people... Because, I mean, it is talks about, like, a lot of people do have accidents and die, you know what I mean? And so I do really believe that, that the people not sitting well with what was done to them. And again, until those restitutions happen, I mean, it's always going to be those kind of things. But it is one of those things, too, to say, okay, there's a town here, and then as a response to that legacy, we're going to make it a, recreational area for people with this buddy to come bring boats and rent boats.
Yeah, I had no idea about until this blew up on social media. I don't remember ever learning it, but I really don't think I did until years ago when I heard about it on social media.
Yeah.
And
it's so crazy.
I went to Lake Lanier as a child and went to the beach there. I think I only went twice, but still, I remember there's a beach there, and I remember going and playing on it. Like, it's just some, like, normal ocean, and not all this, like, history is there.
History. And, because I've been there once, and granted when I kind of moved here, even a little before, like, it was already a thing, like, oh, you heard, like, so that, so I got it literally from, kind of more local people in the area who, but at that point I hadn't had gone at that point, but I did go once, and it was a good time. It was with some friends and stuff, but it was definitely, I will say that I didn't see anything significant or any type of homage in any way, shape, or form to even suggest that a town had ever been there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anything. And again, like, you can never...
When I got older, I heard it was haunted, but I never, ever heard why.
Yeah.
They were just like, people just drown there. It's haunted. Never, ever any kind of context or any kind of inkling of something like I really need to investigate because there's a lot of history there.
It's a whole, like I said, a whole town, a whole community burned, and then as again a response to that, and because again you said 1912, but then it didn't get flooded until the 50s. But it's like, okay, even in that time, I mean, no idea of rebuilding at all. Like, just for somebody to say again, like, okay, it burnt to the ground,
and then white people took the land, and then flooded
it. I mean, that's just, I mean, it's just so disrespectful on so many levels to even go that route to say, we should go to do with this. Let's turn the whole thing into a lake. Let's cover everything we did and all the history with water. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's just... I mean, it is quite disrespectful, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's not even a strong enough word for how, like disgusting and disrespectful it is. Like, I can't...
It really... out of all the things you could have done and did to... I mean, because like I said, outside of it being a lake, there's nothing out there. You know what I mean? Like, there's... So it literally was for that purpose. Let's just put water over it.
Yeah, and then we can, like, charge a bunch.
Yeah.
And have a bunch of visitors.
Make
on someone else's land.
Yeah. Make the tourist attraction and, and then you forget that, again, people lived here and died here. And because, again, like I said, there's nothing. There's not even like like I said before, you can never just put a Band-Aid on anything, but I mean, just at least it just shows at least accountability to at least say here once stood. I mean, I feel like it doesn't take away from anything, but at least making people aware of the history, or at least try to pay some type of homage, or saying anything. I mean, so that stuff is, compared to what you do and how much money you make from a place, a plaque. You know what I mean?
I feel like they aren't going to do that until, like, we as a society demand that land back.
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll like give us a plaque at first. And if we keep on demanding land, maybe the people of Oscarville, like their descendants, can get back the land.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're even gonna like do something like that until there's a call to action for way more by a large majority of the public.
Yeah. Right. And I think again,
especially now, so many rich people live around there.
Yeah. And right, which is, that's gonna be the biggest thing, and reason again why you want to keep it, under wraps, low key. I mean, and then like say even if you bring attention to it, social media. I mean, there wasn't like a major outcry or demand for something to get done. It was just like, I mean, I think more people was just probably more shocked with knowing that or learning about it. To just instinctively feel like to do something about it, especially because of where it is too. I mean, it is like way north Georgia, so a lot of people might feel like, oh, that's just.
But not that north. It's North Atlanta.
Where?
Lake Lanier.
I mean, it's like significant. I mean, it's up there. Way North Atlanta. I mean,
not for my mama wouldn't have driven me if it was really.
It's up there, like it's towards like.
But it's huge, so yeah, no, it's in. Hold on, we about to see.
Yeah, I know it's like isn't like towards like going towards like the Cumming area and.
Yeah, it's like near Buford.
Which is, I mean.
That's not that far. I mean. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
From the perimeter is.
Yeah, because especially the traffic.
Yeah.
I don't think the traffic was as bad when I was a kid.
Yeah, right. Just like, I know as a kid, like, just so happy to be in the car.
Yeah, didn't care. Right. And we went to Sonic on the way, so we were happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's certain places that even as a kid, I felt used to be longer, but even as I drive them now, it don't even seem, in retrospect, that they were either that long or, again, I spent a lot of time sleeping on those rides. So where it definitely seemed like, oh, we're here. We're here. Oh, wake up. We're here already. So it seemed, but yeah. So I don't know if it's one of those things too. Like, but no, I think something definitely needs to be done about that. Especially because I mean, even in regards to, I mean, even if you don't make it about us and reparations in that sense, like I mean, like a lot of tragedy does happen out there. So if nothing else, I mean, there should be some call to actions towards that alone. You know what I mean? To allow a place to continue to bring in people, tourists, and money with as many casualties as, and is wild in itself, too.
Yeah, even if it didn't have the history, it's still like a danger zone because of the amount of debris, and also I feel like the spirits.
For sure.
Yeah, which
at this point, listen, y'all.
I would be too. I
would be too.
If I was a spirit, I would definitely be doing that.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm shaking up the water. I'm not gonna lie to you because there ain't no way you gonna tell me.
I probably would have caused more deaths.
That same water is like those. You tell me to what is it? To swim or die.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is ancestors
exactly
the same thing. And I know, look, I be shaking the boats if I was what you say.
Yeah, it was really sad. One of the guys that I was watching, that it was his grandpa. Like, he made it out of the town with a few of his siblings, but then they didn't really make it out past then.
Oh wow!
So he was either the only one or one of the only ones of his siblings to make it out, and then he was able to create a whole lineage and be a farmer and like be able to recover-ish, like but it's like, I mean, nothing, we said this in the last episode too, like nothing, even if they like gave the town back and stuff, would actually repay any of the ancestors for what their ancestors went through. And then because of how important like family lineage and like the family wealth is too, and that was all ripped away and they had to start fresh, like it won't be able to repay.
And I know that people talk about like and there was lots of debate on reparations and people feeling like, well, why should, let's get reparations and all these kind of things, or, they're only gonna waste it and throw it away and all these things, which could be true. If that's what they want to do, then let them do that too. But I do think that it's clear that even if reparations is not, I personally think we should get a sense of reparations, only because, again, if it was just slavery, okay, cool, we might could talk about it. But because it's like, again, we go through history, so many different things at every different level, and to never really get any sort of even apology or any acknowledgement. It's like, okay, we just try to cover it up as much as we can. We'll whitewash over history as much as we can, and that these are the solutions without just, again, acknowledging accountability and saying, hey, our bad, I fuck up, whatever the case may be, let's at least do something. And I think we're going to continue to have these kind of racial tensions because it's like, okay, we just going to keep sweeping it on the rug, or we just try to, let's not talk about it. And it's like, no, let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, like I said, getting sorry. Like, we got to wait, like I said, for the even last episodes where we talk about people have to wait 30, 40, 50 years just for
it was
apology.
60-something years from the start of the experiment to the apology.
Sorry is wild. It's just really wild. And like I said, again, it's just...
I also feel like there was barely any kind of celebration from the government when they made Juneteenth the holiday.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like they just were like, here you go, we're doing so great by making this a holiday, but we're not fully celebrating it and allowing all people to know that we can celebrate, and also celebrate's a weird word for what actually happened, but but acknowledge that not everybody was free.
Yeah.
4th of July is not Freedom Day for everyone.
Right. And like I said, and 4th of July is not Freedom Day for slavery at all. Because
that's what I'm saying.
America independence from that whole thing. It had nothing to do with what we it had nothing to do with
which is why I think we can't call it Freedom Day anyways.
Right.
It's not true.
Right, because African Americans and blacks were not free during the time of the 4th of July. So,
and also indigenous people
or acknowledge. We was 3/5 of a person ourselves during that time. So, but
and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment came out the late 1800s.
Yeah, that's right. And so
that's not that long ago.
And I feel like I said, just making atonement for that, and I think that until the country really makes atonement for it, it's always going to be it's always going to be a thing. It's always going to be a issue, because it's like I said, we just so many things in our country is backed off of beliefs of lies. There's so many examples of those kind of things happening where, again, you had no person of interest, you had no criminal at all, and then literally, we saw a black person, let's accuse a black person, and so many things that we still honor today, that affects today, but because of those beliefs, and it's just okay, oh well.
Yeah.
I definitely want to hear, I want to hear from our audience. Please comment, please DM. Also, talking shit ATL with no G, because we're the G's.
Yes.
I love that. I just want to say that. But talking shit ATL at gmail.com if you feel more comfortable emailing. You don't have to share your information if you want, but I really want to learn from people. I want to start a conversation of how do you best think that reparations should be handled? Mm-hmm. What do you think should be done? You think it should be a focus on money, a focus on land, both? Also, how there's also reparations due to indigenous people. How are we going to fix our dark American history that has systemic issues in it, in the system that is the base of everything? How are we going to fix it? What are your ideas? I'd love to talk to y'all. I know you would too.
Yes, I would. And because I saw social media too that Oscarville isn't actually the only city
that
this happened to in our country, and there's more. Definitely look them up. This is just definitely one example, but there are many cities and small towns, like I said, we mentioned that either was bombed or burned or flooded, you know, in this country where predominantly black areas that were literally just completely destroyed.
There was the Ocoee massacre in Florida too, and then in 1927, 30 pounds of dynamite were used on a levee during the Great Mississippi Flood to keep the rich alive and poor dead too.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Like there's so many more than what we can cover that this has happened.
And I love the way that you definitely went into, like, started with Katrina and then kind of went into this because even though there's very differences, a lot of things definitely the same. And so again, for a lot of people who feel like, oh, it happened so long ago, or they, you know, that would never happen again. They wouldn't do it again. And then literally, what is that? 10 years ago? How long? About 10 years ago?
For Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah.
I think it was 2006.
So almost,
it was about 2005 or 6.
Oh, it's about 20 years ago, actually. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Wow.
It feels so close because it happened during our lifetime.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's weird how, like, years... That's... Even as I get older, I actually reflect a lot more of, like... I realize that history is not that far away. Like, I already know that logically, but I, like, feel it in my bones, you know?
More, right. No,
like, I'm like, wow.
More, again, when people say, you know, we come so far, and it's like, well, really, we just only came 1-2 generations.
Yeah.
If that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, a lot of these people are still literally living today.
Yeah.
We haven't come that far, people.
No.
And I really wish people would really stop saying that rhetoric, because, again, we made a lot of advances, but we still have, but again, from when we started, we still have a long way to go, and to be like, oh, those ideas just died out. No, they didn't. You know, no, they
and
didn't.
you can celebrate the advancements that have been made while still acknowledging how much more there is to do.
Right, exactly. I definitely agree. And like I said, we need to pay more homage to these places. And again, these are the things, like I said, really need to make the history books. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And again, I mean, I understand why they're trying to hide it, but we can't allow this stuff to get swept for real. I mean, they're changing the history books, trying to eradicate the history books. And I think said it past episode.
It's all government funded, so they say what they have to, and what is public. Like, I feel like we only knew about, like, Hiroshima and, like, all that stuff because it was a bomb and it made, like, news. So they were like, we have to talk about this, but they didn't even talk about all the details of that. You know, they leave out everything they can and just put in what is already known.
Right, or at least make it sound good enough. Like,
make it sound justified.
Yeah, like, even, you know, when it came to, like 9/11 things, like, that was a major thing. Like, I mean, granted, like, you know, what was done was horrible, but it was really, I remember the play on it was really like, okay, let's get the people also to be equally feuded by this, so then the support of, okay, let's go to war, and then nobody said anything, because this is like, okay, even though there's a lot of things downplayed about it, how long we was going to be, what was going to happen, what was the plan.
How much money was going towards it,
you know,
that they were cutting funds for other things.
It was like, ignore those things and let's just continue to play on the emotional. Let's show as many videos of people not making it, or let's show, you know, crowds cover, you know, or firefighters and stuff, or let's talk about all the people that died, and, you know, let's really play on the emotion so that everybody can be like, yeah, let's go.
Really, like we talked about before, we weren't even going back at, like, the people that did it.
Right.
We went at the people, like, of their country, but we didn't actually, like, really infiltrate ISIS. Like, the whole plan was a lot of innocent people died.
Right.
So I'm down for some revenge in certain circumstances. But go after the people that did it. Yeah. Don't have casualties in it.
Right. Agreed. And I mean, so you definitely got to, like, be aware of these things, guys, because, again, like, how the way things happen, we don't shape these stories. You know, they shape themselves, and so we have to really be tentative to it so that, again, these things don't happen again. Seriously.
Yeah, so let us know. Also, share a story. If you heard of something, want to share it with us, let us know. If you want us to talk about something on an episode, we are all ears, baby. Come on. Talk shit with us.
Absolutely.
Yes, but we hope you enjoyed this episode, as much as you can for the topic.
Yes.
But we hope you learned and are bringing some of this knowledge forward and talking to other people
please.
about it.
And that's the biggest thing more than that. Even if you're not talking to us about it, please share it with your
share.
friends. Because again,
this is important stuff that everyone needs to know.
Yeah. Because again, it could be us as one of the casualties of, innocent person, a casualty. For something crazy. So so it's important for everybody. So that's all I got though.
That's what I got.
Cool.
Okay. Love you. Bye.